This holiday at T-Mobile, it's not about how far apart we are. It's about how close we can be. So we're bringing out our best deal. Right now, get the iPhone 12 on us on every single plan with eligible iPhone trade-in.
Cool. So I can FaceTime with my sister in Savannah.
That's right. The iPhone 12 on us on every plan on America's largest 5G network. It's time to holiday on with T-Mobile.
With 30 monthly bill credits plus tax. If you cancel credit, stop, and balance on required finance agreement may be due. Contact us for well-qualified buyers. Qualifying consumer plan required. See coverage and offer details at T-Mobile.com.
What is up, guys? I'm Dusty Grant, the host of the DG and Friends podcast. I'm excited to take this ride with you as I get to know interesting folks from all walks of life and pick their brains about their journey. I'd like to sincerely thank you for tuning in. DG and Friends starts now. I am here with Bryan Steele. If you are watching on Twitch, please interact in the chat. You can steer the direction of the show if you'd like. If you have questions for Bryan, if you have questions for me, comments, interaction with the show is highly encouraged. It makes the show more fun for us, and what you give to us, we will give back to you. So without further ado, without too much more talking, Bryan Steele, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Just grinding it out. Doing another episode 4. This is my 9th podcast I've done in like 3 weeks. I'm finding myself.
Is it getting normal?
It is. It's getting normal, and I'm finding myself more and more obsessed. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I guess we're going to find out.
I think it's a good thing.
It's a great platform to have. You know, we talked about it on Friday with my buddy Derek, and he's like, you're basically kind of creating just a TV channel for yourself, or, you know, the live streaming thing. And for me and for you and everything, it's like, we need to continue to interact with people and try to keep these relationships that we've built so strong. And I've been able to do that doing this, and I've met some new people too, and learned a lot of skills that I think I can apply to my music. So, you know, it's a win-win-win.
Yeah, always constantly learning. It seems like, you know, I've watched your stuff on Twitter and here, and you're always trying to figure out new ways to connect and grow. And so I'm trying to do the same, you know, with the studio. It's just a different side. Like, you're on the grind with the music and trying to make that work and grow and build. And I'm kind of doing that the same way, producing on the produce side and mixing side, and just, you know, how do I grow? How do I help people? You know, I'm you know, doing different things to, like, a blog on my website, just to like try and help artists and give them tips and stuff. So it's kind of the same thing, just different coin.
So how do you, like, I know my cold call customer acquisition is social media and getting people to listen to my music and all that type of stuff. And being a musician, it's a little different than being a studio. So when you're out there prospecting for clients and things like that, like, it fascinates me how you find new people to come record at your studio.
Well, I mean, it kind of started with going to shows. Like, that's really where it began, is like just going and listening to music and being like, I like them. I think their personality is awesome. I love their music. They're somebody I'd want to go work with. And so I'll just approach them and have a conversation and just, you know, let it go organically from there. They may already have something recorded. They may not need me, but my thought was, hey, just be out in the local music scene, just seeing people, watching music, supporting people, you know, buying the shirts or the CDs or something here and there, and just try to be a part of it. I mean, I got out of the local music scene after being in a band for a while. I was probably out of it for 6-7 years. So it all changed. Like, all the people were totally different. So I'm like, well, just time to go back to the bars and just go see music and just start meeting people. And that's it. It's slow. I mean, it's probably not unlike an artist when you're just starting out. You're just, you know, one fan at a time. It's kind of one relationship at a time for a studio. You know, as you work with more people, your reputation kind of goes with it, and people just start to find you.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot and even I don't know, I guess I'm coming up on, I guess I just passed 3 years since I've been working on the solo project, and it's still one by one. I mean, are you able to hear me right now? I'm sorry, I'm hearing some funky stuff on my end.
Yeah, you sound good to me.
Okay, I heard something weird. I don't know if a kid upstairs jumped off something. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but that's a definite possibility in my house. Uh, I don't know if you can see the.
It's not unusual. I can do that. That can happen in my house too. Same thing.
We're starting to get some questions here, and I definitely want to encourage people to continue to ask questions. So I don't want to cut you off. There's a lot to be said about the networking. That's how you and I met.
Yep. Yep.
The COVID thing happened, and I was looking at live streaming, and I had seen some live streams that you did, and I'm like, man, that guy, I would like to go over there and try to do a live stream there, because everything you did sounded so good. And it was like, I'm just going to reach out to this guy. And sometimes you just have to be like, I'm just going to ask this person if they want to come on the show. I'm just going to go ask this person if they want to do something.
I like that, because that was my thought. Like I was telling you, I go to shows and I try to meet people there. Well, everything's shut down. So I'm like, well, what do I do now? How am I going to do any of this stuff? And like, everything dried up all at once, just like for the artists, the studio stuff dried up instantly. And so I said, well, I've got a bunch of people that I've recorded in the past. I'm like, their shows are all gone. So
Right.
I just started calling them and I said, hey, I was like, I just want to help you guys, just way to collect tips or something online. So we just started doing the live stream in the studio. I set up a mic, kept it real simple, just acoustic stuff, and just, hey, let's just try something different. And that really, I think it helped. It seemed like everybody could come in, collect a little bit of tip money, whether it was a lot or a little. It was something they got to play, they got to perform for people, try to promote it the best we can. But that was a neat way, like you say, keep the relationships going, keep meeting new people, because I got people like yourself coming in to do live streams and meet for the first time and just kind of have that opportunity to do something different and grow.
It for sure, and it gave that, because when I came and played at your place, it gave me the experience of almost like playing a show, because I was meeting someone that I'd never met in person for the first time. And then you're going to be sitting there, and you're a studio engineer, so you know your stuff, and it's like he's going to be sitting there critiquing me and trying to make, and I'm like, I want to sound good when I go play in front of this guy. I was super nervous, but you made it comfortable. But that's the feeling I like about playing live shows, those nerves and that getting over it. And then when you finally get out there and you're like, and you feel like you somewhat deliver, it's like, okay, I can do it. I'm not going to die out here. You just got to go out there and do it. You've played these
Those
songs.
30 seconds before you start playing are the worst.
Oh man. Yeah. Just terrifying, just absolutely terrifying. And there's sometimes when I feel really confident and I feel really chill. And then there's I think it depends on the magnitude of the show, probably. The bigger the show, the more the nerves come. But I mean, like, a lot of people don't like that feeling, but that's like what I'm going for. That, like, I want to just grab my guitar and run away. I'm sick to my stomach. I'm lightheaded and freaking out, thinking I'm going to go out there and forget all my songs. It's like, that's the feeling I want.
That's how you know you're doing the right things when you feel that way. You're doing the right things when you're leaning into those places of discomfort, because you're going to grow.
Yeah.
It's going to be it's going to help you. Whether it bombs or not is kind of irrelevant. You're going to grow from that experience. So yeah, I love that.
Even the failures, man, you almost learn more. That it's like, okay, you obviously didn't practice enough for that one. There's some things that you need to change with your rehearsal routine or whatever it is. And I constantly learn things when I do that. But Matt Baller's a good friend of mine, and he checks in with the show on a regular basis, and he's always got awesome questions. He's a music lover. He's a huge local music fan and stuff. Yeah. So I'm sure Love he Matt. Knows. Okay, Matt. So
I met him. I don't remember which show I met him at, but I remember meeting him because he's
at all of them. So
YouTube. He's at all of them. So I couldn't even name it.
So he's asking, who have been some of your favorite bands to work with?
Oh, man, it's hard to say. Good. So one of the earlier bands I worked with was Afro Jim. They've broken up since, but Colton is an awesome, like, everybody in that band was awesome, just super talented at their instruments, really chill, good to work with. So I loved working with them. I love working with Whitney. She is just such a fantastic singer and songwriter. Like, she's always sending me like little phone demos and stuff she's doing on her own, and she's just constantly churning out music and seeing. So it's so much fun to work with her, just because she's just open to trying so many different things. And then just got done and they just released this album, but Miles on End out of Hayes, Kansas, just dropped a 4-song EP, and they're same thing, just the energy and the vibe in the studio. It's like super creative, really encouraging. Like there's just no stress working with those people, and those are just some of my favorite to work with. Like regardless of style, it's just it's gonna be you're gonna get something good.
And you're like,
Everybody's
I'm
just really
working.
engaged. Yeah,
You're like, this
right,
is my job. I get to do this and work with
right.
these people that are awesome at music, and this is pretty awesome. That's got to be a good feeling. And you
And
mentioned
I get it first. Like I get to hear these things coming together as we're
right.
creating something new, and that's a blast.
So do you do a lot of producing with the artists that you work with, or do you mostly, and because I know there's engineers that do it both ways, and I know there's engineers that do both. So I'm just curious, do you do a lot of production?
So I mainly think about just full production. Like I'm going to go through the whole process with the artist, start to finish, as a producer, and then there's others where I um, just do like the mixing mastering, where they've recorded somewhere else, but they just want somebody to mix and master. Those are like my favorite spots. If I get to be really involved in the creative process, because I am a musician, not was, but I am a musician. I like to help and come up with ideas and help the artists kind of find their voice. So I love that stuff. I'm always growing in that area with people. So I love to produce, and then mixing and mastering. Just those little tweaks that just make it when it all comes together.
Is the mixing your favorite part of it?
I thought early on it was, but I don't get the interaction with the artist then. Like,
True.
they're not in the room with me when that's happening. Like, I almost think, like, that moment at the end of tracking where you've just about got everything down and you can start to hear where it's heading, like, that's probably the most exciting time,
I
just because
can't
everybody.
imagine being on the engineer side of that because I like the last studio session I had, I went in and recorded, and I've got 2 songs now that I just approved mixes on. But I remember walking out of the studio and feeling like it was just almost a blur.
Mm,
There was a lot of production. Some of my songs completely changed. I'm gonna have to relearn them when my arm is not falling off, and I, but I'm gonna have to go through and modify and relearn a couple songs. But I'm so proud of how they turned out, and I challenged myself a lot, and a lot of that was thanks to the production. I'm not in a band scenario where
mhm,
I collaborate with a lot of people when I'm writing. So sometimes my songs don't get any input at all from anybody besides me until I hit the door at the studio. And then he's like, all right, man, how comfortable are you with changing this a lot? And I'm like, I'm ready to go. Whatever. Let's try it. Let's go down a wormhole and see what happens. I've never had a bad result.
mhm.
And having a producer to bounce something off of and be like, hey man, maybe you should break up the strumming here and maybe chop this up a little bit. It's kind of getting those are things as a writer and when I'm trying to tell a story I don't hear. So guys like you that
Right.
have that production ear and can be like, hey man, this second chorus, let's layer a harmony here, or let's do a
Right.
little something with the horn, with some ambient horns or whatever, it's strings or
Yeah.
anything that you might program in there that people might not even be able to hear, but it just brings the sound of the song up. And I forget all those things that he does while I'm in there because it's a whirlwind because I'm tracking guitars and singing. So you get to hear those things the next day. This time I left the studio and I didn't hear anything for 3 weeks.
It all came to you later?
Yes, and I
Oh,
and
man.
I and I and I had an idea of what I did because I was of clear mind, but it was a whirlwind, and then I started getting nervous. I'm like, are they just terrible? Is that why he's not sending them to me? I can't remember everything that I did. Oh God! And then I finally got them. And they sounded great, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm always panicking, but working
Right.
with a producer is awesome. I think a lot of bands that aren't open to that probably should be a little more sometimes because I think it takes your songs up a notch, right?
I love when an artist is comfortable. I mean, there's a delicate balance there. Like, you have to walk a fine line because these songs are like, when you're an artist and you write a song, like, it is your story. It is your baby.
Definitely.
You have birthed this thing and you're gonna hand it over to somebody else to manipulate and arrange and polish and stuff. And that is a terrifying thing to do, is to just, like, to hand that over. And so, like, you're as a producer, I'm walking in, it's like, well, how much do they want me to do? how much do I not do? It's really kind of difficult. So I love when an artist comes in and they're like, "Hey, whatever ideas, let's just spout them out." When an artist is really open, like I will even sit down before we ever record. Let's sit down and I'll go to a practice session or something. We'll go through the songs and I'll ask questions and ideas and get thoughts on where they want to take things direction wise and give my inputs a little bit there before they ever hit the studio. Cause then if there's a major change we make, they'll have time to practice it and prepare it.
Yeah. I don't have that. That's the one thing I don't have. I try to make sure, like for me personally as a solo guy, I try to just make sure I'm as prepared, like chops wise as possible, knowing that I'm
Mhm.
probably going to have to learn a new part on the fly and track it, or or Frankenstein it together somehow while I'm in there, and
Right.
then relearn it. And it's just, but that's the exciting part for me. I'm like, I take the song in there and I'm like, what's going to happen to my baby today? Yeah, and
Yes.
it excites me. It's not like something that I'm scared about, and it's awesome that you have bands that trust you. If I knew anything about sound engineering, I would love that. I can only imagine like being able to be like, hey, can I give you my opinion on this song? And I think that would be such an awesome part of being an engineer.
Yep, yep. I'm always doing that with Whitney. I'm like, "Here's what I'm hearing." Like, I'm thinking about production ideas because she's just sending me, like, a guitar or piano with her voice, and I'm like, "I'm thinking we get some massive organ on this song," or something
Yeah.
just wild just and even some of that feedback I imagine as an artist, like, "Oh, somebody else is getting ideas too." Like, this is gonna be this really cool collaboration, and yeah, that's just fantastic stuff.
And I think something happens when an artist is recording with a producer that really where there's a connection there, because I almost sometimes when I go in there I almost feel like I have like a vision of how the whole thing in the grandiose scheme of things, I kind of have a feeling of how I want it to be or how I want it to feel. And then I go
Right.
in there and I kind of try to describe that, but mostly I can only describe that with the song itself. And then the producer seems to hear that, and we kind of start here, and it just slowly, as the project goes, it starts to like meld together. And by the end of it, when I'm listening to the final mix, I'm like, dude, you nailed everything I was hearing in my in my imagination. And it's just this weird, it's almost this weird like paranormal type of connection that you get when you're like
Mhm.
when everybody's focused on the same song and you're dialed in that environment. I love it so much, man. I can't
Yeah.
imagine just that's your job. It's so cool.
Yeah, I love it. It's great.
So I've had some music nerds ask some questions here too.
Do it. Let's go. Let's go.
Some of the guys from Twitter that I've got are pretty awesome guys, and they're all musicians, and they're a lot of DIY guys and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I actually had to print out a list of them. I asked for questions, and I was not prepared for the technicality of some of the questions, and I was like, man, I'm gonna have to Google some of this stuff before we even talk about it, so I don't sound like a complete idiot. But I might be past that point by now. Episode 4, I'm sure everyone already knows. The first question I had is a guy named Alan Morrissey on Twitter. He's asking if there's a particular order in which track stems should be mixed. Now, for the listeners out there, why don't you explain what track stems are first? Because I think a lot of people that haven't recorded or haven't been a sound, if you can Cliff's Notes it for the people that are listening to kind of understand what that is, and then maybe go into the meat and potatoes of it.
Yeah, so if you've ever seen like a live sound mixer, you see all those channels on the board, right? So each channel represents an instrument. So when we talk about stem mixing, we're talking about each of those instruments being a separate stem, and we're going to mix those together to make terrible cooking analogies. Tracking is getting your ingredients, editing is chopping and measuring, mixing is putting it all together, and cooking it. Mastering is whatever sprinkling you put on top of it. But um, so that's really what we're talking about when we talk about stem mixing and how we're going to put it together. Um, my process is probably different from anybody else's, and I think that anybody who's going to mix should have their own. I came up with my process from watching some different people I really liked, kind of learned what they did, applied it myself, changed it, to suit my needs until I got into this nice comfort zone. Right? I knew where I was going with things. But I think what's more important is having a process that you're going to follow every time. I think what happens a lot of times is, when you're doing it yourself and you jump into a mix and you're going to start working on it, like, oh, I'm going to go like mess with the vocals, and now I'm going to go over here, I'm going to mess with the drums, and I'm going to jump back and forth, I'm going to do this and that and the other. And you don't have a path and a roadmap of where you're going. And I think that is probably the most important thing, is having that roadmap and that path when you're going to put something together like that. So some people like a top-down mixing where they just get everything in there and then they just start with their master sound, everything together. Going to put some EQ and compression on it and dial it in that way, and then handle the specifics later on. I personally like to, if I were to just like in 30 seconds, let's see if I can do this in 30 seconds, say my process. I like to go from nothing on there, faders up, get my levels, panning decisions, then I flip to mono, and then I go in by section. So I mute everything but drums, and I just work drums. Then I build bass on top of that. Then other instruments, guitars, um, violins, piano, keyboards, whatever else is going
Programming,
on.
anything like that.
Any programming, if I got that in there. Then I'll go to vocals, and then harmonies are after the lead vocals, and then any effects kind of come in there with the vocals. Sometimes I have some specific effects I like on the instruments, and I'll pull those in at that time. But really high level, that's my process. Um, and I have certain times where I'll go back and reference something. I'll always have a reference mix. I have a bunch of songs that I'll just go back and listen to of similar genres, and kind of go, hey, am I in the ballpark, sitting in the right place compared to this mix, or similarly? They're not going to sound the same because I mix differently, and that's fine. But just having that process helps me know when I'm done, because I'm never going to be perfect. It's never going to be like I'm always going to get better as a producer, as a mixer. So the way I think about it is like, just make sure you get done. Just have that process, follow it. I might get to the end and go, I'm not happy with the snare. Let's go back and adjust a little more. That's fine. You always do some of that, but knowing where you're at in the process and always kind of moving forward helps immensely and helps you get done.
So you've basically got like a template that you try to follow and fit everything into. Do you find yourself, you might finish a mix and then you give yourself a couple days with completely fresh ears on the mix and then go back in and be like, what the heck was I doing? Or for the most part, do you feel like when you walk away from the mix for that, do you have that type of a period? First of all, I should ask. I know a lot of times engineers like to let their ears rest for a day and then analyze the mix a little more. Do you do that, or do you feel like you've got it pretty dialed in when the project's over?
I think with the templates I use, I'm finding over time I'm doing less tweaking later.
Gotcha.
You just get more comfortable with where you're at and what changes you're making. But I do always kind of come back and listen, give yourself a break. It may not be a day, it might be an hour or 2 hours or something, just to not think about it. Go have a meal, go do something else, go throw the frisbee or something. Like, just get outside.
Does it bother you to
walk.
have a mix like hanging out down there that you haven't really decided on though? Because if I had to
Nah.
walk away from a mix, I'd be like, I don't really want to walk away from this until it's done. I would be like obsessing. And
I mean, I could kind of see that, but at the same time, like, I always have like 3 or 4 projects in work. Like, I just
Gotcha.
have to live in this stage of like, some things aren't done and they're just in a certain stage. And I think at some point you do enough of them, they're going to get done. So you just kind of trust that, and hey, it's going to be better if I step away for a little bit, come back and listen, see if there's any last minute adjustments. And that's why the revision process is so important. I mean, I've had mixes where it's like, yeah, I like listening back, I'm like, what was I thinking on mix 1? But by mix 3, it's fantastic. Like,
yeah.
And that just happens. But you trust that you're going to keep chipping away at it and it's going to sound good in the end.
Well, it's so hard to have the ear too, because you could, and I think a lot of people that listen to good music, and I think everybody subconsciously hears good audio quality, whether or not they know what's actually happening to create that good audio quality. I think when you put a record on, you can hear that. You can hear the quality of the recording. So like I don't think people understand that you could just decide, as Bryan Steele recording Dusty Grant, you could just decide like, hey, I'm going to turn the guitars up 4 decibels and see what happens with that. You know what I mean? And these decisions are like such crucial decisions within the song. And I think sometimes when artists put, hey, just got done with mixing, I don't necessarily know if the fan base of those artists know how important it is to reach a mix that you're happy with on a song that you're going to release. You know, it's
It
like
is.
this,
Yeah.
you're a part of this huge process. And it's like you develop a really close relationship with the artist that you work with, because it's like, this is my baby and we're going to send this baby, out into
Out
the
to the
world
world.
together. And both of our reputations are on the line here.
Yep.
It's just it's kind of there's this intimacy that happens between an engineer and artist that I think if more people understood that, I guess it would be interesting for them to understand. Like if Matt's listening in here, I'm sure if he hasn't had that analogy or hasn't had those details, I'm sure it's interesting for him to hear. So I'm kind of trying to do that, because I know you and I can chop it up about mixing and technical stuff. I mean, you're obviously way more technical than I am, but we could probably talk and have people in here going, what the heck are these dudes talking about? So
I'm leaving.
I'm doing my best to try and make sure it's good for everybody. So I have another question here. Why do my DAWs default to guitar being recorded on the left?
Interesting.
Do you understand that
say
question? I don't
DAW, it's
understand
digital
that.
audio workstation. So it's like Pro Tools or Cubase or Reaper or Fruity Loops or whatever it is that you're using to record as your DAW. Why is it always on the left? I mean, because you can pan it wherever you want. I wonder if that has something to do, like, all the guitar amps, like if they have stereo options, it always says left mono. So like, I wonder if the default mono is always left, and if that's just a carryover of that. I mean,
So they
I
might have a
have no
setting somewhere. They probably have a setting somewhere where
It's
if
like
they
a
just clicked
default.
to where it's, it's like how you set your default camera on your computer or whatever it might be.
It might
Okay.
be something like that.
You might have just saved somene's day there. You might have saved someone like 8 hours of watching YouTube videos. So we should put this behind a paywall, Bryan.
We're gonna do a course. I bet pay $25.
Yeah, I've thought about that. It's like, we should put live streams behind a paywall. And it's like, who's going to go behind a paywall to watch live
To
streams?
watch us talk.
Yeah, come on. You guys are idiots. So should artists this is the same. Alan had 3 questions right away. So my guess is Alan's probably at home working on a project.
He's working on a song right now, Alan. We're here to help.
And he's here to help. Yeah, he's irritated with his home studio. Should artists give engineers a benchmark reference sound or let them determine the feel, balance, and end result of the mix? Here we are. That's a totally applicable question. We just got done talking about mixing.
Yeah, I think you do. I think you absolutely send some sort of a reference. I ask it maybe a little differently. I ask, what's like the favorite record sound you've heard? And because like you can make a song, like you said, sound so many different ways. You can mix it so many different ways. How loud is the snare? How loud is the kick? Is it super fat and deep? Is it really punchy and tight? I mean, you like, so I always ask, like, what's the favorite sounding record or 2 or 3 that you feel like fits your style or what you're wanting to achieve? Not that you're going to sound like them, because I never want to be like, you're going to sound like this artist when you're done, because your songs are different. Your instrumentation is different. You played through different amps, like any number of things are going to be different, but that can give me a frame of reference for, how present vocals need to be, how much reverb or effects we put on everything, just to kind of get it in the ballpark. But then when it's all said and done, it's going to sound like them. It's not going to sound like somebody else. So I mean, it's not when people ask for references, I think that's what they're really going for, and it's fair to offer them up. Just recognize you're not going to sound like that artist when you're done, but the approach to the music is going to be maybe similar in that regard. So when you're thinking about your favorite sounding record, it's like, well, why is that my favorite sounding record? Is it because of the drums or vocals? And kind of think through that process when you give references, because that can give a really clear roadmap to your mix engineer to just kind of know where they're heading with things.
And from the artist standpoint, and I know you're an artist too, but from my standpoint, I've taken like stuff in there that sounds nothing like what I do, but it might be a country record, or it might be a bluegrass record, or it might be a folk record or something. I'll be like, you hear that vibe? Like, I don't know. And he's like, yeah, he's got this panned here, blah, blah, blah. And he starts talking about what all's going on in the mix there. And I'm like, yeah, all of that. I don't know
Right.
what you just said. I have no idea what you're talking about, but yes, all of that. That's what I want.
That's something that, that's the thing that's a truth out there, right? That's a song that is released. It's a frame of reference. Like, you've got that then to base everything off of. You can now communicate about your own music through some sort of other artist. It's like, well, I don't like the
Right.
way his vocals sound, but I like this about this song. And you can kind of start understanding each other and communicating about that. And that's super beneficial.
I bet you there's engineers out there, honestly, if you thought about it, their ego is so big where they're like, my mix is my mix. I don't want to hear anyone else's recording. Show me the song. This is going to be mine. But I can't imagine that. I wonder if like the big record labels, like when you get to the real stuffy top end of the music business, if the mixing engineer is like, I don't want to hear any references. I'm the shit. This is it.
Right.
As an artist, I think that would be hard for me to take, to be like, hey, I thought we were supposed to be kind of collaborating here.
Right. And that's what I think it should be. I think if you're looking for somebody that's going to be a producer, that's going to be a mix engineer for you, find somebody that's listening. Find
Right.
somebody that's going to try and help you achieve your vision. I don't want to make something that only I want to listen to. I want to help the artist achieve their goals. What is their objective? Because if they're successful and they're happy, they're going to tell everybody they know to go work with Bryan. That's
Right.
what I want. That's what I want to grow into. And so that's where I'm always trying to push as far as a direction. So, it's really listening. It's really trying to understand what somebody's gonna achieve. And the other thing is, when you're choosing somebody, go listen to their stuff and really think, if my music sounded like that, would I be happy?
Who are you texting?
My therapist.
You text with your therapist?
Text, video chat, call. Yep.
That sounds too easy. How did you find her?
I just went to betterhelp.com/save. She's a licensed therapist and it's all online. I connect when it's convenient for me and don't waste time driving anywhere. Plus, it's affordable.
I wonder if I should try it.
It's great to talk to someone in confidence. She's helped me sort out quite a few things. And right now you save 10% off the first month when you go through betterhelp.com/save.
BetterHelp.com/save. Got it.
With Metro and the best deal in wireless, whatever your goal, however you hustle, you can rule your day. Get 2 lines with 5G access included for just $35 a month per line, period. With taxes and regulatory fees always included, so you know exactly how much you pay every month. All on America's largest 5G network at no extra charge. Plus, at Metro, get the latest 5G phones, like a Samsung Galaxy, for less than $100 when you switch. That's the best deal in wireless, so you can take control of your day wherever it takes you. Metro by T-Mobile, empowering you to rule your day. Requires autopay. First month is $40 per line for 2 lines. Samsung A51 requires port from eligible carrier and ID validation, limited to 2 per account. Coverage not available in some areas. See metrobytmobile.com or store for details.
Right.
It's going to sound like you, but like, everybody has different tastes and everybody has different strengths and weaknesses and skills. Like, if you like the way somebody's stuff sounds, that's the person to go with. If somebody, really just has like an 80s hairband sound on everything, then you're, 90s grunge, then it might not work for you.
Right.
You might be disappointed in the mix. So, and not to say that people can't be flexible, because there's people that can do a whole bunch of those different sounds, but listen and see how flexible they are and what they've done on their website.
There's a lot of that type of thing too, where like you have certain engineers that record a certain kind of music, because just think about it. There's genres that can get away with different sounding recordings, and then there's other genres that can't. If you're doing like a thrash billy bluegrass, some of that up tempo washboard stuff like that, you can get away with a pretty raw recording and get a good sound out of it. But if you're like a technical death metal band, you've got to have the precise, timed out, everything has to be like a math
It's got to be
problem.
locked in. You got to be editing that thing. Yeah, it is a math problem. Yeah, completely. I totally agree.
So you have certain engineers that specialize in those different types of things too. And it's like, you could just go down a wormhole and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. But we'll move on, because I still have more questions from people on Twitter, and I don't want them to be mad at me if I don't ask them.
We're going to do rapid fire.
Let's see. Tips on mixing and mastering. Do you have any good tips that are relatively easy that will make a big difference for home recording? I would like
Mix
to
in
hear the
mono.
answer to this one.
Mix in mono. Like if I were to do one thing and suggest it, so like I said earlier, I kind of set my levels first and I do that in stereo, and I make my panning decisions like these guitars left, these guitars right, that stuff. So I make my panning decisions, and then I go right then I flip everything to mono. And the reason I do that is because it's going to force me to really work hard in the EQ and compression to make sure things are distinguished. Panning is a little bit of a cheat in that it automatically separates things out and makes them sound big. If you fold it to mono and you're forced to make it sound good in mono, and it's obviously going to be, you're not going to make it sound great in mono, but you work in mono as much as you can, get it sounding as good as you can, and you flip that thing back to stereo and you're like,
Wow.
what just happened? And it sounds fantastic. So that'd be like, if I were to say one thing, do that, and then get a process, you know, get a process and follow that and stick to it. Because as you do the same process over and over, you're going to get better. And that helps you get finished with stuff.
Does a
So
lot of the
those would be,
mixing happen on the fly for you too? Like, you're already kind of starting to mix as you're tracking, or is mixing a completely separate process for you?
I do it now. Some people do it on the fly and are kind of doing it as they go. I keep it separate. Because what and this is just a personal thing. I want to make sure I'm mentally focused on the performance during recording. I don't want to be thinking about the mix or what I'm going to do with EQ and stuff while the artist is there and I'm trying to record. So simply just 100% I am focused on performance during tracking. It's like, did they
Gotcha.
play it in time? Did they get it right? Did the vocals have the right emotion? Do I need to, encourage them or push them? Like, I'm thinking about those dynamics. And then mixing, it's like, okay, that point, I got the performances. If I get the performances, the song is a whole lot easier to mix. So,
Yeah. Yeah. The old adage, you can't polish a turd.
yep. You can polish it a decent amount.
Yeah,
It
but
will be a shiny turd.
yeah, it's still, the fact of the matter is it's still a turd, regardless of what you do to it. I had another question. Now, if you don't want to answer this, it's completely fine. But how much does your monitoring cost in total, ballpark figure?
Oh, wow.
If you don't want to answer it,
I
it's
don't
fine.
know if it's, I mean, I don't have super expensive monitors. I have the KRK Rocket 8s, so they're larger, some of the larger KRK monitors. They work fine for me. They're not the flattest, but honestly, if you get used to them in your room and you figure out what sounds good in your room and elsewhere, like I don't know that makes a huge difference, but I would get some sort of studio monitors. I wouldn't necessarily just get like a consumer stereo, something you just plug into your computer and try to mix off of that. I would get something, but I don't think you have to spend a lot of money. I think I got these for maybe $400 or so, these speakers. And I use some the other part of my monitoring is, so I use some headphones just to check things on um, when I'm flipping back and forth to make sure I got low end right, and I have some just normal like speakers that I've had since college with a subwoofer, just as a, what somebody in their house might listen to it on, and just turn
Right.
that up. Does it translate? And I got a little switcher that goes back and forth between them when I need it. But um, I don't think as long as you've got a room that's quiet, relatively quiet, and you got some decent speakers, you can get quite a long ways. I don't think you have to spend a lot of money on monitoring.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, like I bought the Presonus Audio Box i2, the cheap package. It's got the
Mhm.
little studio monitors. It came with a little condenser, and that's the interface I'm using right now, and it seems to work pretty well. And for the most part, I'm not ever going to record my own project and put it out for like release. I like to work with producers and go in and get a really glossy, nice sounding recording. And I don't want to push the buttons when I'm creating a song in that form. That's
Mhm.
just me personally. I know some artists prefer to control it from the beginning to the end. I like to get it there and then do it. But I almost forgot where I was going with that.
You like
I,
you're like your Persona speakers. They're good enough,
well,
right?
yeah, I do. I like the Persona speakers, and for what I do, it's perfectly fine for me. I can get a really good sounding demo mix to send to my guy with this equipment. So anybody that's starting out, I would advise people that are starting out especially to not spend a ton of money on it, because you might get into it and realize that you hate it, because I did for the first 3 years. And the biggest thing that I had was I was working on a Mac, and I'm not used to working on a Mac, and I got rid of my Mac and I have a PC now, and I'm like a wizard on this thing because I know PC and I know the file paths
Right.
and I know everything about, and just knowing your equipment is a huge value to getting anything good. I am a Destiny player. I lose. Someone asked me in the comments here if I play Destiny 2. I do play Destiny 2. I play it really poorly, but you should definitely tune in
You should
if
watch.
you want
If
to
you need
tune in
entertainment.
and yeah, if you tune in and you want to watch me on the death screen waiting to
Yes.
respawn all the time, you can find me. All right.
One more thing on the speakers. The thing that I recommend is, like, when you're just in the room, throw on your favorite music and just be listening to it, because what's going to happen over time is you're going to hear your favorite songs, your favorite records, what they sound like in your room coming out of your speakers. And then subconsciously, when you're working on your own music, you're going to start moving it in that direction too. So just listen to music on whatever speakers you get, and you'll get better.
I know when I'm analyzing a mix, and most of the time when I analyze a mix, I'm not thinking in technical terms at all. I'm like, I just feel like maybe the tambourine's a little hot here, or I feel like maybe the guitar's a little light here, and then I can translate that. And he's like, well, I was actually doing. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. But when I get the mixes, I always listen on my headphones here. I listen on my speakers here. I listen on my speaker upstairs. I listen in my car. I listen on my phone. And my wife's like, wow, you're really enjoying yourself with listening to your own music. And I'm like, I'm actually analyzing a mix. And she's like, you're just listening to it over and over. And I'm like, no, I swear to God. I mean, yes, I love it and I'm proud of it because it's my baby, but I actually am analyzing a mix. And for the most part, as the artist, I don't always have a ton of mix notes. Maybe I should have more, but I usually get the mix and I'm like, this sounds awesome. And it's nice to work with engineers that know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think the other thing is I always recommend that. Like, I send all my clients and all the artists I work with a list of things to do. I say,
Nice.
let's listen on more than one speaker. Don't listen on your iPhone and then start sending me notes. Like, I need the bass up. Your iPhone does not produce bass.
Right.
So listen on a bunch of speakers. Listen in different places where you're used to listening to music, on your earbuds, on your phone, on your stereo, whatever. But listen in a bunch of places, and then also listen at high and low volumes, because that's going to tell you a
Yes.
lot as well, is to listen at high and low volumes. So I always, tell people do those things. So that's great that you're doing that.
I listen to mixes. I mean, and in my car, it starts to get really technical because I drive to work. I got a 42-minute drive each way. So I'll have a mix and I'll just be on repeat in my car. And I'm like, I'll listen at 12 on the way to work. And then on the way home, I'll listen at 20.
Nice.
And I know that I have it set to where I'm like, it's just on the way to work. It's just above like the noise of the car driving. So I can I'm like, if this was just on quiet, what would the vibe be like? Okay. Now if it was up loud, what's it, and
Right.
it's so fun to get mixes, man. It's the best feeling ever when I get an email and it's like mix 1. I'm like, yes,
It is time.
It's so fun. So what
Yep.
do you like? What are some of the most common mistakes you hear in a mix?
Imbalance low end. It's just, or maybe just noise. So, like, the only things that should really be carrying any low end are your kick drum, bass, and synths. Sometimes, depending on the genre. But other shouldn't have any low end. Like, you should be rolling that off, or you're going to get a bunch of rumble in that. So low end is a typical thing that I see. Other than that, man, what else? I had a thought. I probably lost it.
It's okay. It
Um,
happens when you're doing this stuff.
Probably
There's a
the
lot
vocals.
flying at. Go ahead. Sorry.
I remember now what it was. It was reverb. People just putting too much reverb on things. You oftentimes need less than you think. And so, that's reverbs and delays. If you get too crazy with that, especially on vocals, it sounds really weird. But that's one. And then I'd say just inconsistent, like really not having a consistent vocal volume. Like it's just kind of jumping around where it's loud or quiet and just not having the compression and the levels really
What's the
set
hardest for
well.
you to mix? What's the hardest instrument for you to mix? Drums?
I don't know if it's the hardest. I mean, it's the most stuff because you got the most
It's the
channels
most
there.
tedious, right?
Um, so there's more going on, but I probably is drums just because you're sometimes dealing with tuning issues or um, things like that. It can just it depends. Maybe a song that you get has phase issues between drums, or you've got to resample and trying to pick what resampling you're going to use on a snare or something like that. But um, yeah, that would probably be one. And then vocals. Vocals are always like just getting that sound just right. But I like that. Like I talked about a process is like I'm just like I know when I turn off all the plugins I'm using on a track, it's like if I turn it all off, it's like, oh yeah, that was not that great. And I turn it all back on, I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's giving me that energy. Like this is good. So but I love when it comes together when the drums are just slamming and it sounds great and you're feeling good regardless of the style. Like it's just fun as it comes together.
So what's the great, like Matt Baller's asking you, what are the greatest challenges you face when you produce? Because it seems like you're pretty dialed in, man. It seems like you're pretty cool and collected and you feel really comfortable when you're working in your workspace. But like, what is the thorn in your what's the burr in your saddle, Bryan Steele?
If let me get real with you. Let me get real.
Get
It's
real. That's what
probably just
we're
imposter
supposed to
syndrome.
do. What's that?
Like I imposter syndrome. Like it's the idea that you're just because you're coming into this like, what does everybody think of how this is going? What's going on in their heads? It's a lot of psychology and stuff, but like just feeling like, I'm driving the session a lot of times. And so like it's like, am I really the guy who should be in charge of this? Like, who's giving me the keys to this station wagon here? And so I just sometimes you just feel a little bit like you're an imposter in those situations. But I mean, it's like you said in when you're going on stage and you're nervous and you're like, I'm doing the right thing though. I know I'm gonna benefit from this. This is the right stuff. And once you jump in and you're doing it, you love it. The hardest part is probably so like your favorite part is getting the first mix. My my most terrifying part is sending the first
Oh
mix,
yeah, I can
right?
imagine. Yeah,
Because
like
you
boom,
work
boom,
on
boom,
it, you
boom, boom,
work
boom,
on
boom.
it. Nobody else has any input, and then you send it out, and like you might not hear anything for days. And I'm like,
Yeah, I can.
they hate
That
it.
would drive me
It
crazy.
sucks. I'm gonna go sign up for Uber, and I'm just gonna drive a car, and it's gonna be that's how I'm gonna make a living from now on. And then, but like 5 days later, it's like, dude, I love it. I'm putting in comments now. It's like so like I've gotten to the point. It's like, okay, I know I have this terrifying imposter syndrome. I put a little line. It's like, hey, send me a note after your first listen or something. Like I'll just some little tag just so I know like, hey, they've listened and they're like, yeah, we're excited, we're gonna put together our notes and changes, because that always happens. You always have something to tweak, just so it's
Okay,
not a
so I
big
was
deal.
going to get to it. I was going to get to another question, but we've got somebody else in the comments now.
Do it.
This is Richard. This is a buddy of mine, Richard Reed. He's actually my brother-in-law. He's a really good guitar player, and he's
Still using a manual razor? Join the facial hair revolution with the Philips Norelco One Blade. This innovative tool lets you trim, edge, and shave your beard or stubble with ease. One Blade, your style, made simple. Available in Walmart.
kind of starting to get into like wanting to be in a band and stuff. So he's curious about recording. When you're recording guitars, for example, do you like using specific types of strings and guitars? Like, do you have specific guitars and strings you want players to use, or is it just whatever their flavor is when they come in?
I think whatever they're comfortable playing on, because I think it's mostly in performance.
Right.
What I do recommend is make sure you get a fresh set of strings. It's new. They're not going to be super stretched out or worn out. You want them really fresh, because I think when you do that, you get a lot more bite and life out of the guitar. when you're playing. So fresh set of strings, but I think a lot of different strings can sound really good. And I know we always talk about guitars, and I'm a guitar player, so I hate saying this, but most people don't care about the guitars. Like if you listen to a bunch of records, the guitar sound varies so much, and
Oh
yet
yeah.
nobody's complaining about the guitar. It's like, well, that guitar sounds like trash, and this one sounds really good. Like no one really like if the songs are well played or the parts are well written. The tone is really not of the guitar is not necessarily driving things. You might go, oh, that part was really cool, but it's the vocals and the drums is what people are going to pick up on really quickly and what sounds good or bad. Guitars can sound a whole bunch of different ways and still get away with it.
We're getting some fun questions now. What's the strangest strangest instrument you've had to work with?
Hammer dulcimer. That was easy. Like I felt like I was working with Coldplay.
I have to
like
Google
it's
that.
This giant. Yeah, go Google hammer dulcimer. I was, and so it looks like a flat guitar, essentially. So they got like a sound hole on it, and it just a bunch of strings on it. But instead of plucking anything, they've got these specialized hammers that they hit it with, and it is, and I was like, and it's cool. Like Coldplay has used it on a couple of their songs, like that have been really popular.
Okay, Brian, I'm gonna try.
Band came in.
This is going to be a first. This is going to be a first. I'm going to see if I can share my screen and
disaster is coming.
Give somebody a look at the hammer dulcimer here. Hold on a second.
Let's do it.
Writing's not that easy.
That's a commercial.
Grammarly can help.
We don't need
this
to. Can you hear that?
This is grammatically correct.
Folks, I want to do a brief intro to
Can you hear this?
About to see.
I can't hear
anything.
anything.
Don't know
you
why
can't hear anything. Okay, hold on. Let's try this.
But it might be going. Oh wait, I heard something.
Just
I heard
I want to turn you on to one of the most beautiful instruments that there is.
Can you see this now?
I was going through Black Mountain and I went into a store
there?
called Song with the Wood, which is one of my
it may be showing up on the
stores
Twitch, but I'm not seeing
in the world.
Yeah, there's.
While I was there, I encountered this musician.
Okay, Matt. How does it look out there?
Go look up Hammer Dulcimer.
I'm going to put a link
it's here.
to
Hold on.
Musician. He's
talking about. He needs to play the hammer dulcimer.
3 Plus, the stereo effect that you get off the strings and everything. So this is a less than perfect video. Joshua has awesome professionally done videos on his website and his YouTube channel.
Okay,
you got to go check it out. I'm going to put a link to that there as
Play the dulcimer, bro.
Delivered an incredible performance.
Can you hear it?
And please go. Musician.
I can't.
Going to do the
somebody else can.
Here we go. Here's the hammer dulcimer. Can everyone out there see and hear this? It's actually a cool instrument. Wow. I could just sit and watch this guy play for an hour. I should quit my show.
Everybody stop. We're just gonna watch this guy play.
Yeah, we're just gonna watch this guy play the hammer dulcimer from now on.
So they came in, and so it was like an acoustic folk group. They had some drums on stuff, but it was really chill, and it was one of the earlier records I had worked on, and it was a group out of Denver, and so they brought their stuff in, and they had a friend who's like, hey, we're going to do a guest artist on this, and it's going to be Hammer Dulcimer. And I'm like, what is that?
Sick.
And so he brings it in, and I'm like, so I'm going to put a mic like here, and we're just going to see what happens. And so like, I just kind of set it up, and you can't really see it from here, but I'm sitting in the control room. So I actually have isolated rooms for my studio. Sometimes the producer's in the room with the artist. It depends on the setup. But I'm able to kind of close the door, listen to kind of how it sounds, where the mic should be placed, and kind of move it around. So I moved it around a couple times, like, okay, I think it sounds good. We're going to roll with it and go from there. And it turned out really good. I was really happy with the way it sounded at the end of the day. But that was like, it's one of those things. It's like, I don't know that Google's going to help me here. Like, you can go Google like where to mic a guitar cab up, until you're blue in the face. But
how to mic the hammer dulcimer?
Yeah, you're just guessing, and it's okay.
The Google, that's the first thing anyone's ever Googled where there was no results.
Google's blank.
Yeah, it's like sorry, bro, can't help you with that one.
Did you mean to say something else? Let's try again.
Hammer what? hammer toe, hammer
Yeah.
fist, hammer time. So tell my friend Richard, what are the tricks of the trade to get a great guitar tone?
So great guitar tone. If you're looking for like a rock, if we're talking electric guitar tone, what I like to do, obviously get your amp dialed in just the way you want it so that it's sounding good. But one tip I have is turn the gain down just a little bit from where you normally would. A lot of times, guitarists, myself included, we just like to crank up that gain knob just too much. What you'll find out if you turn it down just a bit beneath where you normally like to have it, to where you're just like, I want to do more. You'll find it actually has a lot more bite and life in a mix, and it'll still sound really massive and huge. But turn the gain down just a bit. The other thing that I do is I always just use a single mic, SM57. There's others that use more than one mic, but and I've done that before. But I think it's you're just spending more time and it's not giving you a whole lot better result. SM57 on the speaker, I like to target right where the dust cap meets the cone, just kind of off center just a little bit and back maybe an inch or two. That's my starting point. And then if I want it to be more high end, I slide the mic out on the cone a little bit. And if I want to be more low end, more beefier, I'll slide it more to the center. And that's kind of how I position it when I'm listening in the speakers.
So you're getting more bass if your mic. I didn't know that you're getting more bass if your mic and the speaker in the center.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so who would be your dream band to work with?
My dream band. Oh,
yes.
Wow.
That's another question from the Peanut Gallery. I told you we get people in. When people are in here, they ask good questions, man. It's good.
If I could work with anybody, I think I would like just to be able to do it, just because it would have to be such a wild experience, would be the Foo Fighters. Like those guys are just monsters on their instruments and other instruments.
Yeah.
And they just have like, anytime I've seen them like doing stuff in the studio, it just looks like a blast. So they would be so much fun to work with if I ever got the chance. I don't think that will ever happen, which is okay. I don't need that to happen to be like fulfilled. Like just making music is fantastic for me, but they would be so much fun to work with.
It's nice when you get to that point, because I know that when I first started out in music, especially like when I was a young man, when I was 19, 20, 21, and I was in a band and we were traveling around and we got a little bit of radio play, and I was like, I'm going to be a rock star. This is going to be a big deal. This is going to be a big. And then as you get older and you start to understand what it is, it's like, it's more kind of about the journey for me now. Like I just love to play and I want to see how far I can take it. And I want to meet as many cool people as I can and see as many cool places as I can see and work with cool people. And like the fact that my music has brought me here tonight to sit here and talk on a show, and I've got some cool guests coming up and I've had some cool guests come on. It's like, I'm in a good spot, man. I'm cool with where I'm at. I mean, I'm obviously going to work hard to grow and all that type of stuff all the time, but I don't have delusions of grandeur anymore. And it's almost refreshing when you get to that point, like to where you're almost more creative and you're almost happier in your space, being like, no, this is fucking great what I'm doing now. I can continue to do this and continue to grow and be completely happy. Like, I'm, as an artist, strangely enough, I haven't been able to pick up my guitar for like 2 weeks because of my neck stuff. But like, I'm about as content as I've been in a long time. Just being like, what? I have this platform. I'm not worried. I don't have to rely on touring right now. I'm one of those guys that's fortunate at this point to have a career and be a musician. I have friends that are full-time musicians that are, starving, literally.
Yeah.
And it's really sad. So it's like, I'm actually in a pretty good place, and I'm not trying to rub anyone's nose in it or anything like that. It's just, I'm in a pretty good place, understanding that like, I don't need to make $5 zillion doing this and be a big star. I honestly don't think I would like that.
More pressure, right?
Yeah. And you talk about the imposter syndrome. Think about if the Foo Fighters came in your studio.
Oh man. Yeah.
If I ever got invited to open for some big artist, big acoustic act or something like that, I'd be like, Oh God.
You would, that part where you're like, you feel like you run away, you would run away, right?
Yeah.
It would just happen.
I think I'm just going to mail it in and go back to the office. I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm completely with you there. Like, yeah, if the Foo Fighters called me up and were like, we want to work on a record with you, I'd be like, nah, it's okay.
Would you even know how to price it? I mean, what do they charge? Yeah, yeah. Of course you know how to price it. Of course you know how to price it.
I would. I mean, it would be more than I'd charge other people, but that's because I know they have the money.
yeah.
But it'd probably still be like half. It'd be like less than half the cost of like anybody else that works with them. I'd probably be like a tenth of the cost.
The second you quoted it, they'd be like, "Yes,
twice what I normally." Yeah, yeah.
Like, we picked this guy up. This chump doesn't know anything. I get that. I get the imposter syndrome too when I go to the studio and stuff. Sometimes I'm like, I don't belong here. I'm not a good enough player. I'm not a good enough singer to be in here. This is a pipe dream. What are you doing in here? I get it. I get that too, but I think you're right. If you're feeling that, you're exactly where you're supposed to be, which is kind of a weird thing.
Yep.
But Brian, I'm going to let you go, man.
Great.
We're right at the end of an hour. It felt like we were sitting here for about 5 minutes. But yeah, we are over over an hour actually. So why don't you tell everybody how they can connect with you and hear your projects?
Yeah, so the best place to hear stuff I've worked on is at my website, forgeaudioprod.com. You can go on there. You can get in touch with me. I've got, a quote form on there, and we can chat. I always do like Zoom meetings and consultations with people just to figure out if we could mesh personalities. So, go on there, fill that out. And if you just want to catch me on social media, Instagram at forge.audio, follow me there. I post little stories, things going on in the studio, what's happening. And I love to post, when cool things are happening for artists that I've worked with. Because if you need something new to listen to, go check out Miles on End on Spotify or Bandcamp or wherever.
They just released a record, right?
Support some of those bands. They just released it last week, so it's brand new. So go
awesome.
Check that out.
I went and connected with those guys on Spotify after I knew, and I added one of their songs to the show playlist and all that. So if you guys are following the show playlist, definitely you'll hear some of Bryan's stuff. There's a couple of songs on there. I'll probably end up adding some more and that type of stuff. But guys, please support Bryan. Please hook up with him on Instagram. He's a great guy, a knowledgeable guy, a super friendly guy. Always been super cool to me. Helped me out when I first got started broadcasting and stuff. So it's not lost on me, Bryan. I appreciate you, man. Do you have anything else you want to tell the people?
No worries. You're doing great. Keep it up.
Thank you. Do you have anything else you want to tell the people
Don't stop. Don't stop. Lean into making music. Lean into being creative. Like, I know this time sucks, and it feels like we're never going to get out of this, but we are going to get out of this. And like we talked about discomfort. Lean into this time, because this is your opportunity to create something new. And when we get out of it, you're gonna be better for it. So I know, Dusty, you're doing that right now. It's stuff you've never done before. So just keep doing that. It's really helpful. And I think more people are going to connect with you over time. So keep it up. I love it.
I will do it, man. I appreciate having you on. If you ever want to come on again, or if you have artists that are looking for promo opportunities or anything like that, have them reach out to me. I can get people scheduled quick, and it's a pretty quick and dirty process, man. I mean, it's easy. So just, if you have artists that are looking for publicity, you have anything you want to do, just let me know. We're getting comments saying it was a great show. So we probably weren't too audio nerdy. I think we've maybe got it down to the layman's terms. And I think the people that watched enjoyed it. So Bryan, thank you so much, guys. That is the end of episode 4 of DG and Friends. You can check me out on all the platforms. We're going to call it a wrap for tonight. Next week, I've got Hugo Hernandez from Ether. It's going to be a very spicy podcast. So we'll see you guys soon. Please check it out. Connect with me. Connect with Bryan. We love you guys. Have a good evening. All right, guys, that's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice to be notified of new episodes, and leave a positive review if you dig what you're hearing. Guys, I would love to hear from you on social media. Let's get connected at DustyGrant57 on all platforms. All right, y'all, that's it for now. See you next time on DG and Friends.
Who are you texting?
My therapist.
You text with your therapist?
Text, video chat, call. Yep.
That sounds too easy. How did you find her?
I just went to betterhelp.com/save. She's a licensed therapist and it's all online. I connect when it's convenient for me and don't waste time driving anywhere. Plus, it's affordable.
I wonder if I should try it.
It's great to talk to someone in confidence. She's helped me sort out quite a few things. And right now you save 10% off the first month when you go through betterhelp.com/save.
BetterHelp.com/save. Got it.
Everybody needs reliable home internet, but who needs the hassles that come with it? That's why T-Mobile is bringing you a new choice for high-speed home internet without annual service contracts or data caps. With T-Mobile home internet, you get a fast and reliable connection for just $50 a month with autopay. That's right, $50 a month with no hidden fees and no price hikes. So Minnesota, what are you waiting for? Sign up at T-Mobile.com/home internet.
During congestion, home internet customers may notice speeds lower than other customers due to data prioritization. Coverage not available in all areas. Qualifying account and credit required. $5 more per month without autopay. See rep for details.